So let's kick it off here. We are going to be talking about trimming your Revit template. That's what we'll be talking about primarily today. We will talk about also what type of company templates we should be creating, what should be in them, and kind of a little bit of background. I am a senior AEC technical specialist here at ATG USA. My primary background is structural design. So my template is going to be tailored around the discipline of structural design. But if you have any pinpointed questions about multidiscipline, we can definitely talk about them. I started out in the industry doing architectural design and then moved more towards the structural design before coming into this consulting role here. But today, primarily, we're going to be talking about trimming your company template using a CTC suite, the Manager Suite. We'll use a couple of the tools in there. There are some free tools that we'll use as well, but majority of them are going to be paid for tools. You can also get a free trial, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And okay, looks like we got some great chat features here of what we do have, what we don't have of templates, and also our disciplines. We're going to talk today about discover how to lean out your project template, quickly remove all unnecessary items, and set the correct standards. So we will go through using the BIM Manager Suite. One of the favorite tools that I love using all of the time is the Type Swapper. That's going to be our backbone here. And then from there, we will move in and talk about family tools, also Project Cleaner, and Import and Linked Manager. We can also use Family Processor for trying to fix some of our families, but we aren't talking too much about families at this point. It's more about the actual template itself. Before we go into the live demo, because I don't believe in death by PowerPoint, we are going to talk about learning objectives. We are going to talk about primarily overall trimming your template to the bare minimum, establishing the correct starter template. Maybe right now we have a template, it's a little older, it's outdated, and there's not a lot of what we actually use in there. We have to reference older projects, or we're doing the adverse. We're grabbing an older project and starting our model from that one and trying to delete whatever we modeled out of there and then starting from there. Something probably we don't want to do. We could hypothetically take an older project and make that into our template, but I would prefer to do the transfer project standards if that were the methods. I don't have any of those modeled elements, but we'll go in and ask any questions along the way. Next one is establishing the correct starter template. I think I just said that. And then we're going to be separating your standards warehouse. So I prefer to have a content management system for that. But by all means, you can store it in an existing project if you do not have a content managing system. I recommend Hive CMS because that can be, that can either be cloud hosted, so you don't have to worry about working at the office, downloading things through the VPN, or it could be local, so it gives you the either or, because maybe you're working on a project that actually can't be hosted in the cloud, and it allows for that variability in terms of project items. It also comes with analytics behind it, and there's no cap on how much analytics you're running specific to projects. This isn't a Hive demo, but if you would like a Hive demo, feel free to reach out to us here at ATG, and we will do a demo on that CTC tool. All right, so before we hop into live demo, let's talk about template file types. You can either have a template as .rte or .rvt. You can make a .rvt into a .rte and vice versa, .rte to a .rvt. What's the difference though? .rte can't be overwritten because when you're opening it, you're going to be opening it as a project, right? When we go to File, Open, I'm just assuming that everyone knows how to utilize Revit. But when you go to File, Open, and you go from a template, you click on your template and you say Project, and it's not going to overwrite that template, meaning if I open the template by itself, make changes, it's not going to hit Save, it will overwrite it. But in this method, we hit Open from template to a project, it becomes a .rvt. Main reason why you would want a .rvt as your company template is if you're having work sets enabled. That's the only reason why you would do a .rvt. Well, I wouldn't say only reason. One of the main reasons why you would do a .rvt is you're going to have a company template that already has work sharing enabled. And the only way to have work sharing enabled is by having a .rvt extension. So if you're ever wondering why we would do that, that is one great example of why you might want to have a .rvt versus a .rte. The .rte though doesn't get overwritten. You could, well, it can. You would store it somewhere where it's not going to get overwritten, and then you go to everyone's designer's desks and have it where you do the file open. And we'll go right into Revit to show you. So if I went to a file template here and I went new, this is where my company template would live versus actually going through and doing file open, because we're going to create a new project, right? It's not going to overwrite our template project. It's not going to create a .rte template. It's going to create a .rvt from our .rte. Hopefully I'm not speaking too fast for those. And again, if I am, shoot in the chat, let me know. Again, having a .rvt will allow you to have work sets enabled. So if you wanted to have work sets enabled, that's why you would have a .rvt starter template. The only thing about that though is it can be overwritten. So I always recommend having a backup somewhere just in case someone decides to overwrite the one on your network, which you don't want to have happen either. So that's why when people were saying in here, they probably have a .rvt or .rte, those are the questions you start to ask. So as we're going through and we're looking at my current template, I went through and just added a ton of things that I may not need. And this would just be because we're compounding. If I'm at a firm, I'm adding new things to our template that people may use. I prefer to have one company template total. You can have, well, you will have it specific to discipline. So you may have more if you're a multi-discipline firm. But if you're single discipline, one company template could suffice for multiple projects if you're using a content management system, right? Because then we're not having to load in particular build projects like, is it going to be wood, steel, concrete, precast? We don't have to worry about having this template that's specific to what we're designing. It's just specific to discipline. That's another way, is using a content management system. Why would we do that? So we don't have all of this data, right? If I go to structure here, again, structural background, this could be referred to architectural too, or anything for MEP. If I go through and select some of my system families or component families that I have in my project, I already have a ton in here that I'm never going to use all of these in a singular project, right? I just have them loaded in here, so I don't have to go in and hit load family and grab that. That's not something you want to have in your template. You don't want to have unnecessary content in your template. You should have directed content in your template that you're using specific to the job. One way of doing this is having a content file or a project file that you load things from, or a family library, right? But instead of having to go through the mundane task of searching for that load family, I prefer to also have Hive CMS, which is a content management system, which works like Google search. And you can go through and search for your content versus actually going through, and I should have logged in. I apologize. I can't speak and do this at the same time. So instead of going through and loading your content from a particular area, you just have to go to Hive and you search for your content. The great thing about Hive as well is that you can store system families. So instead of having a ton of system families that you want to load in from a particular project folder, right? Because the usual way would be maybe transfer project standards, but those brings all of the system families in that you want, right? If I were to bring all of my walls in, it brings every single wall in from whatever project you're having for your standards. So usually people just have their template that has the walls that they need for the specific job type. Or you can have Hive, again, which Hive has the ability to load in system families. So yes, I just exit out of it, back up. You can store system families in Hive if you want to as well, allowing to search for that content as you go through, like walls, right? I went to go through and say walls, I can search for my content here. This is what I would go through and actually have and load into my project. Another thing would be drafting views. Now, some of us may not use drafting views. Some other people may use drafting views, right? That hosts a lot of our details. So our details would be brought in by selecting a particular view. Again, I recommend having Hive CMS versus having to go in and pick directly which one and which from which project and inserting those in that way. Another one would be sheets. So if we have sheets that already have views set up on them, like drafting views, oops, didn't click families. I already have some sheets, like my standard structural notes, right? There's nothing on here, but if I wanted to easily set this up, I could set views on this sheet that have my standard notes and then bring it in from Hive, so I don't have to do that every single time, specific to the build type. So again, we're not covering Hive that much, just want to do a quick blurb on why we aren't going to have a lot of content in our template file. So from here, I have my template file open. I'm going to start leaning things out. It has a bunch of items that I don't use anymore. We'll just say Joe's our default person who does things that we don't want him to do. Joe went in our template file, exploded a bunch of CAD details because he wanted to make those into drafting views for our standard detail views as well. So we're going to use our tools to go through and clean that out too in this template. I'm also going to delete those drafting views because we don't need them, because I stored them in Hive. If you don't have Hive, you store them in a different container file that you're going to bring in particular to the job that you need them for. Any questions so far? Alrighty. So as we go through here, you've decided what type of template file you want to have, .rte or .rvt, because we want to have work sets enabled. We're going through, hopefully you have some links that are already predetermined for your view templates that you're going to be utilizing. Having placement holder links allow you to set up view determined view controls so that when you do decide to link things in, they abide by them. That's just another helpful tip for creating view templates dependent on linked models that we're bringing into our project. But let's go through our first tool here. We have some suites from the CTC tools. Maybe we've never seen the CTC tools here before. We have 3 suites available. We have the batch suite, manager suite, and the BIM project suite. Primarily today, we're going to be talking about the manager suite. It is the blue color icons. And if you've never seen the CTC tools, the lighter color icons in the suites themselves are free tools. So if you download the suites for the 14-day free trial and they expire, you'll still have access to these free tools here, but you will not have access to the darker color icons. This panel can be brought out elsewhere. It could also be added to a different ribbon. Maybe you want to have 3 different ribbons displaying the 3 different suites. You can modify that as well in the settings. You can drag this around to reorient them as well. The first one we're going to be talking about is the type swapper. These if I could speak, type swapper is a great tool. The thing about CTC's tools is it doesn't bring you out of the design environment. You are staying in the design environment. It brings the window to you. And from here, what we're going to be talking about specifically in the type swapper is maybe duplicate families. Maybe you brought in some new families and it duplicated them and added that addition of 1, which none of us like seeing in our project, right? It's unnecessary storage that we're having in our template that needs to be removed, and it's hard to go through and find those and remove them. From here in the CTC tool type swapper, you have that ability. I can see that I have grid head circle 1, which is the copy, and what the type swapper does is it automatically already assigns it to what it may be, the grid head circle. And if it isn't, you can go through and see what else is available from the same exact coded family and select to swap that from. So once you go into here, you can select the grid head circle. These are already automatically doing the things that I need them to do. And from here, once you've decided what you're going to swap it with, I'm going to swap. It also is going to prompt you, do you want to delete the duplicate families that are going to be swapped? Of course I do. I don't want them in my template file anymore. So I'm going to hit swap. And it's going to go through and delete those duplicate family and swap them out. It even gives you a prompted little dialogue of what happened. So from here, I can then say, okay, I could either copy it to a clipboard, save it out if you want to have some type of record of what's been taking place. And now there are no more duplicate families found in my template project. The next one's going to be dimension styles. So we all love that template file that has so many dimension styles. We don't know which ones we're going to use, right? So what you can do is you can start either helping yourself out by going through and clicking which ones you're going to want to keep. So over here are approved, which gives you just a little bit of a notification. Yes, I can explain the link view in a template. I can set up predetermined settings for the consulting. Yes, you can. We'll talk about that in a second, Kathleen. But as we go through here, we can go and click through these approved ones that we're going to utilize. If you don't have to go through and click approve, this is more of just a visual. And also, by the way, it lets you sort by those and you can just quickly swap things. But it's completely up to you if you want to go through and click which ones you're going to keep. But as I'm in here, if I wanted to swap things out, like I'm not going to be using my Swiss 721, these should all be actually the other, which is the aerial. So I can switch all of these arrow base 3/32 of an inch to a different dimension style. Now, let's say if there were components or you're doing this in a live project, it would actually list what is being shown. So if it is being used, that may be a good reference for you as well. Use this tool in a project to see what dimension styles are being used and which ones aren't. But as you go through here, you can actually change this out to be the baseline. This should be something different, right? So you can go through here and select that it should be something different. So we're going to go through and change this base, but there's nothing here, so there's no need to change it. What I can do from here, though, is delete that dimension style. So I can go through here and select what ones I want to delete out and just press delete, and it's going to delete that dimension style. So this again allows you to go through and delete these dimension styles that you don't need in your project file. Again, swapping them if you need to whatever one you're going to go through. Now, if this is something that happens a lot, you're in a project that you're going through, you can actually save this selection. So if you had an active project where this was already happening, and you finally went through and sorted out your template, you can save your selection and reload your selection to run this again. So selection being what was selected already and changed, don't hit swap yet. Just go through and select what needs to be what, then save your selection, and then you can come back in and reload it. Next one is type swapper, text types, which is great. As you can tell, I've exploded a ton of CAD. Well, sorry, I didn't explode it. Joe over there in the corner exploded a ton of CAD details in this project to give us an example. But from here, we can go through and there is no count because I deleted those details and just brought them back in as linked or imported actually. But what we can do here is we can swap them. So if there's any text types that we wanted to keep that were in place and we knew what they were supposed to be, we could go through here and swap them to an actual live Revit text types. Is there a way to go to the types to view them before swapping? There is no way to say, show me where this is placed because this is through your entire project. Yes, you can. Can you select by quick select text? Let's see. There's just text notes. Annotation crop boundary. Maybe text notes, but I don't think that's the actual text type. Would it be yeah, maybe it is text notes. Maybe the text notes populates that and you can use quick select. Quick select's a free tool over here in the project suite. And that shows you where things are placed. And then yes, you can select which one you want it to go to that view. Okay, so back here to text types. So again, you can come through here. If any of them have been placed, maybe this is your template, but you want to also fix an existing project, you can go through here and select what it should be swapped to. And then you can swap it. Great, it's done. And then you can go through and delete whichever ones you do not want in your project, and you can delete it out as well. So again, allowing you to delete things that are in your project that are unnecessarily in there that you do not need, and do a thorough leaning of your project. Next one is line styles. So we can go through here. As you can see, I've already checked ones that I have vetted. Actually, these are just the ones from out of the box, but everything else is not going to be used, right? So I do not need this wall frame A dash wall frame A dash frame dat pat, which we all know is from good old AutoCAD. because it was exploded detail. So I can go through and delete the ones that I do not need. I can go through and multi-select, didn't mean to hit caps, but delete these ones as well. Boom, you don't have to hit one individual. These are all from AutoCAD as well, because again, I went through and approved before, so I know which ones are checked or ones that don't need to be deleted and which ones aren't checked, do need to be deleted. So this is something you could do beforehand too in your template, have them checked. So when you close out a Revit, you'll still have these defaulted as checked in your type swappers on which ones you vetted before. Next one's line patterns. This is another great one as well. As you go through, you'll see which ones have been brought in. I didn't have to check any of these because I know which ones get brought in are labeled as imported. So I can go through here and say, hey, these all need to be deleted. And these were new line patterns. And again, the old way would not be in one interface. You'd have to go to manage, line patterns, go through and delete each one individually. You can't mass select delete, which is annoying. But in here, you can just go through here, hit shift, great, delete. I'm going to delete all those out. Boom, I'm done. And I just leaned out this project in a matter of seconds. I can go back to here. What's my fill patterns now? I can see all these new fill patterns that have been brought in from exploded details. We can also notice that because it's giving me the detailed name of what it was and then a new additional number. That's how Revit interprets the new GUID value it's giving it. But from here, I can go through and say, hey, delete, or let's do this great filter. All my checked are at the bottom. These were all new ones brought in because, again, I went through before and hit approved. And then I can go through here and say, hey, we don't need you. But look, they're actually being utilized here. So that's not great. I wonder why they're still in use. Oh, it's just filled region. Sorry, it's not in use. I apologize. Go to here. It shows you the filled region material, if anything's in there, and the type. Is it a model fill pattern or is it a drafting? So you can go through here, hit delete, selected, yes. And it went through and deleted all those out. And now just my approved ones are good to go. My next one's going to be my materials. So I can go through and select which materials I want to delete out. Again, any materials that have been brought in. These were all brought in. I do not need them. This was default copied. I'm going to select all these and deleted. So I just went through and deleted all of my unnecessary items out of my project. Not all, most. Still got some more cleaning up to do. Now this tool, if you forget what I was doing, you can go through and watch videos. Tools, they have a videos icon, or you can click about here, and from about, there's a user guide that talks about these tools as well. Alrighty, so the first one was type swapper. The next one's let's manage our links that have been brought in. Great, there's a bunch of details in here that I do not need as well. So from here, I can go in and remove any of the views that I do not need, or sorry, any of the links or imports that have been brought in. I could also do that simultaneously when I'm removing the views that were created for them. This is just going to pull the links out. So you can do it either or. This one just will keep those view names in there, so just be aware of that. You can go through and hit remove. This checks all of my links. So again, I had some placeholder Revit links in here so that I didn't have to worry about going through and changing my views. And we'll touch on that real quick. So I've set up view templates specifically to monitor how views work. So let's see. I haven't done it yet for these ones, but if you want to monitor or change how Revit links are manipulated while they're in your project, meaning that you're going to do custom and there's specific things in the model that you're going to utilize. You could do that with work sets, so that also works as well. That's why you would have a .rbt. Maybe some things are still working the way they need to work from your own visibility graphics, but if they aren't, you would want to set it up beforehand so you don't have to have your end users going through and switching the views. They should just be able to link things in and it works appropriately, right? And sorry, Brian, I don't have an electrical link. I'll bring that in next time. I'll set a placeholder link for you all. But going back to that, I just remember that he's more on the electrical side. That was correct. And I think I was, yep, that was correct. Okay, so going back to this though, you can have these preset up. You just have to have placeholder links, and be aware these placeholder links have to stay in place wherever your local file is. So these are just dump folders. Essentially, I just opened up an architectural template from out of the box, and then I named it and linked it in. so that now when my end users get ready to start a new project from their template, they need to go to the manage links, and then they select that link and reload it from somewhere, wherever that one lives, okay? So that would be the workflow for you, Kathleen, that you were asking. You set up your view templates that are appropriate, but you use the link feature here because your links should already be in there from your template, okay? That was just more of a little bit of training more from a Revit standpoint here. But again, you can go through and see what's been brought in. The next one would be project cleaner. So we need to remove some of these things that have been brought in as well. Like our views. I'm not using any of my drafting views. So project cleaner is a free tool. I use this also for receiving coordination models, leaning those models out so that when they're linked in, they're not as robust. So this is another great tool for that. But this is specific to cleaning our template. So I don't need these drafting views because I'm having a content management system or a container folder that I'm bringing them in from, because I don't need to have all this unnecessary content in my template file. So from here, I can see that there's been drafting views, and I actually want to just remove all those. So you can check all of them and just hit remove, and it's going to remove all of those views. The next one would be maybe my schedules, right? So another thing that Hive CMS can store is our schedules. So if we wanted to have our schedules just stored in Hive versus having to go through here and actually having our schedules be in here, we don't need them in here because maybe we're not using them. There's no peers in this specific build type, so I don't want to have to go in and delete them out. I should just be bringing in whatever's particular to the project needs, right? So I can hit remove. Legends are a little bit finicky. They cannot be brought in from project to project unless you use a reference tool, and they can't be stored in Hive either. So legends are something you would want to keep in your template. So be aware of that. If you're creating something that needs to be put on multiple sheets, use a legend. If not, create a drafting view, and then the drafting view can be stored in Hive, okay? View templates. Maybe you have some view templates that are in here from out of the box and you just haven't deleted them yet, or you have multiple view templates that are not being used as well. You can go through here and just delete these view templates, and then you don't have to worry about utilizing or going through and trying to delete them later on. So again, you can go in here, multi-select all of them, or go more granular on what you want to select from and select which view templates you need to remove from your project. The next one's filters. So what filters do I need to remove? I've added a ton in here just for our example today. I'm not using any of them in any of my projects or ever use them because it's project specific on what I'm trying to filter out. Or maybe you do use filters heavily to maybe filter out linked models, which is another great use of filters. You can go through here and select which ones maybe have just never been used or never going to be used and delete those out as well. So you can go through multi-select and remove those too. Yes, Rick, you can transfer from Revit. There's also one that's specific to Autodesk that Autodesk actually recommends, which is 22, is their referenced for bringing over legends. And it's in one of their forms. If you just say transfer legends and you Google it, it'll be 22, you download it, and that allows you to transfer legends over from one project to the next. But okay, so then sheets. So if there's any sheets, I use all of my sheets as placeholders. Usually I don't use sheets or keep the sheets in here. What I do is I create a schedule, which then I bring in from Hive that has already a predetermined naming convention. So when I go and hit new sheets, right click and hit new sheets, or my end user does, they select the appropriate title block in the schedule that I brought in from Hive CMS that host my sheet naming convention, which you could do natively from here. If I go to schedules, I can say sheet list. And from here, you can actually already have the sheet name and number. And I bring this from Hive, but I'm showing you. From here, if you wanted to do a placeholder one, you could do an insert of a new row, name it whatever you need to. And that way, when you're going and hitting right click, new sheet, that name already displays for your end user. You don't need to have the sheets in here. And then they can select the appropriate title block, and they don't need to hit load either. because all they need to do is go, they're already in Hive, they're bringing in their sheet name schedule, and then they can bring in their title block that's appropriate for it as well. Alrighty, here, let's see. Next one is going to be back to here, sorry. Links, any links, unnecessary links that you don't need to have in here, any imports. As you notice, all of my imports went away when I deleted my views. You can do that as well from here versus removing those drafting views. Maybe you wanted to keep their names, I don't know. And then you have images. If there's any unnecessary images in here as well, you can go. And everyone loves the purge. The purge is from here. It's the native purge that you have in Revit. As you can tell, I have 1,000 and some change unused items. So I can go through here and just purge everything out. Because again, you're going to be using your content management system to bring in that content, which is recommended. And if you don't have a content management system, I highly recommend looking for one. If not, I still wouldn't keep this in here. You do not need all of your content. It needs to be specific to the job. Because if you start thinking about it, if I start having all of this data in my project file size is going to become larger, and maybe our hardware isn't able to compute with it, A, or B, we're starting to have more corrupt files, more lag time. We're not able to get projects done as efficiently. So again, you can come through here and purge all. I just do the check all and purge everything out. We all know it's again from the project cleaner. You could do this. You don't have to go to the purge. We have to purge this twice because natively it doesn't do that. Next one is, hey, we're making these modifications, we're saving, and we all know from here the file options, or maybe we don't know. Our backup files or journal entries are just extended and there's too many. How can I go through and remove those quickly from that folder? Because I just want to save and I don't want to have a .00001, 2, 3, 4, whatever. You can actually use the family tools. This also works for the families backup files if you have multiple ones that are showing in your folder. You don't have to go through and delete it yourself. This will just go through and look at that folder that you want to grab from. So I'm going to grab from this folder that I'm already in, and you can see my template here, all of my numbers, and I can delete it directly from here. And this is using one of our family tools. This family tools also, which I was going to show outside of it being great for us cleaning up our backup files, we can also go through and select our type catalog tools, any compared shared parameters. So maybe we have a shared parameter folder that we're using for our template. And then we have a second one somehow. How can we compare the both, and what is there in this one and what is in the other one? This is a great tool to compare our shared family templates. Again, maybe we have 2. This is a great tool to see all of that information. If we need to merge any shared parameters, so you can go from shared parameters file to a different file. This also allows you to do that as well. So if you ever have any questions about that, feel free to either watch a video or reach out to us here at ATG. The next one is the family file version detector. So maybe you have a family file and you don't know what version it is. You can go through here and detect that. If you're looking to upgrade your families, which always takes a long time, opening it up, saving it as, opening it up, letting it load and upgrade, then save as. I highly recommend checking our project and family upgrader tool in our batch suite. That tool allows us to upgrade our projects to a new version and any associated links in our family upgrader as well. Alrighty, so let's say if we have any revisions that have been placed or revision clouds, this will allow you to go through there and remove any that have been placed in your template. Maybe you've placed them and you just have them in there. This will allow you to go through and do that. As a BIM manager, we're just going to cover the rest of the tools here. DIM checker is great if you're worried about people fudging dimensions in your projects, because that is never good. You can go through here and check that. Or if you're just trying to look for a specific dimension in the project, you can go through and look for that too. But that will complete our specific use here. If we wanted to go through and utilize this for our template, one other tool though, because we're talking about templates, and shared parameter folders are a great use of templates. You have shared parameter shared parameter manager. With this will allow you to go through manage now your shared parameter folder. And from here, you can select your folder if you wanted to browse through it and you wanted to manage it. I'm just going to use this one from here. But from here, you can go through and manage anything if you needed to. There's already an existing one. If you need to add any parameters, modify an existing one. This is a great tool for your template needs as well. And this is in the same suite. You purchase the suite, you get all of these tools. The only tool that I talked about that is, well, two tools, because someone asked about quick select. The other tool I used and talked about was the project and family upgrader, which is in a different suite. So if you pay for the suite, you get all of these blue tools here. And we talked today about type swapper, shared parameter manager. That's a hard word to say. And then as we go through here, we went through import and linked manager. We talked about dim checker a little bit, revision cloud remover, heavily on project cleaner. These are our free tools again, and family tools is what we covered today. So let's go back into our PowerPoint, and thank you everyone for joining me today. Family preview manager. Yes, Rick, I didn't talk too much about that. We can just talk real quick about it. This will help change your preview image of your families that you have. This is a great tool as well. It is a free tool. There's a video here too. Alrighty, going back to here. But thanks everyone for their time. I will give a couple more minutes for extra questions. So don't worry. If you had any extra questions, we can go back and touch on those if I maybe missed it. But thank you all for your time today. I know your time is valuable. If you're looking to download the tools specific to design, it is under for architects, but it's actually for everybody. So feel free to check out those CTC tools that we just talked about today. My name is Michael H. Have again. I'm a senior AEC technical specialist here at ATG. Feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. Have a bunch of quick tip videos, not just on CTC tools, but Bluebeam as well, and anything related to structural design. So feel free to check me out there. But again, thanks everyone for your time today. Hopefully I see you next time on one of my webinars, or feel free to check out the morning coffee review if you do use Bluebeam Review, which we host every Tuesday at 8:30 CST as well. I will take any questions from here. If anyone had any questions on what we covered. I'm just looking over here at the chat just to check back through. I think we covered pretty much everything. All righty. Thanks, everyone. No other questions have come through. Hope you have a good rest of your day and a good weekend coming up. Thank you.